of our election security series. If this is the first time with us, I'll catch you up a little bit about what's gone on before, and then I'll introduce our host, Lulu Freistadt. So election security is all about protecting our elections. You've heard about long lines, you've heard about voter suppression, but you may not have heard about all the things that we've been talking about here on Tuesday nights on YouTube or Zoom. Our first session was July 6th, and we talked about, partisan boards of elections. We talked about the problem of sensitivity settings on machines that could be programmed by the people at the precincts. Not a good idea. We talked about USB modems that can make any machine connected to the internet. Did you know that happened? Look that up. That's a video that's been recorded. Following that, 2 weeks later, we had Jennifer Cohn from California, attorney and voter advocate, who talked about contests being dropped from ballots. She said, bring your sample ballot to the polls, just in case. She talked about photographing poll tapes and get involved in scrutineers and all sorts of ways in which you can protect yourself. And then 2 weeks ago, we had Lulu back, and we talked about cyber-zeist and foreign interference in our elections. And we talked about insider rigging with Doug Jones and ways in which machines are made to be hacked, essentially. And we're going to add on to this today. We're going to be talking. Well, I'll let Lulu tell you about that. Your host here is Lulu Freistadt. She is a filmmaker, journalist, and part of a Emmy award-winning ABC News team, and has garnered millions and millions of likes for her election advocacy postings on Twitter and other places. So I'm going to hand it off to Lulu now and move backstage and take it away, Lulu.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited to be here and to have you here with us. So tonight our focus is on the voting technology, and in particular a type of voting technology. It's usually called a hybrid machine or an all-in-one machine. And these machines are considered very problematic by security experts. And we're going to talk about how they are proliferating actually across the country. Even as we speak, counties are buying these voting machines and will be using them in the November election. And that's something that is extremely concerning. And I want to get you up to speed on that. And we're going to be talking to people who have been involved in these battles across the country. We've had battles about hybrid machines in New York, in Philadelphia, in Georgia, in Kansas, in South and North Carolina, in Wisconsin, all over the country, really. We are experiencing the push to this newer technology. And so it's kind of like that shiny new thing that people think, oh, it's better, but newer is not always better. And in this case, there's a whole slew of security problems that are being introduced with this new technology. So what I'm going to do to start with, I'm going to play you an investigative video that I produced about this. And I think that's going to help you get up to speed pretty rapidly. So if you just give me 1 second, I'm going to play that for you. And I also, before we get started, I want to share some good news, because we're always giving you bad news, you know, gloom and doom, terrible things have happened. But in the first episode, we covered a situation in Georgia where the new scanners that they got had been programmed incorrectly, and they were actually not reading a lot of the votes. And what happened was we had two very assertive advocates, and they really got in there. They were part of their observation teams, the audit teams, and this is Jean Dufort and Adam Shirley. And they noticed that a lot of votes were not being counted by the scanners. They made the counties take note of it, and in some cases forced them to recount the ballots, and found out that thousands of votes were going uncounted potentially. And they actually did discover quite a few that were uncounted. So Jean tweeted me today, and she said, did you see our big win yesterday? The state election board has conceded. The scanner settings were wrong. They had been marking votes ambiguous if the software saw 12 to 35% coverage. That means basically it wouldn't count the vote if it didn't see like the whole circle filled in. Yesterday, they posted a rule that will make all votes over 20% automatically count. We think it should be even lower, but this proposal is a direct result of our public pressure. And she said to us, thanks for helping, because we did cover this on our Smart Elections broadcast. So I just want to give a big shout out to Jean DeFord and Adam Shirley. And I want to just make that point and encourage all of you. It feels like we're in this kind of slog and that we never win. And, you know, the machines just keep getting worse. And we're always so worried about the vote counts. But here we have a win. And so it's so important for us to celebrate when we do have a win. Advocates spoke up. They went, they observed their count. They took note when there was a problem. They alerted officials. They made noise about it. And in fact, the situation has improved. So those machines are going to be readjusted to count more of the votes. Not 100% victory, but definitely an improvement. So I want to say thank you so much to Jane and to Adam, and to encourage all of you to continue to do this work. It feels like a slog, but it's so important that you keep it up, and we are making progress. Okay, so I'm going to play you real quick this investigation that I did, and I think you're going to enjoy it. Give me 1 sec. I just have to make sure you have audio. You're not going to have audio just yet. Give me 1 sec. So here, audio.
We have some really serious issues here. We are being asked to buy new voting machines.
An expensive voting machine with a very serious security flaw is being purchased across the country. And in one county where we investigated, members of the public are wondering what's behind the deal. The voting machine is called the Image Cast Evolution, or ICE machine. It's made by Dominion.
The Dominion Voting Image Cast Evolution, or ICE, is an all-in-one accessible paper-based voting system.
This Image Cast Evolution voting machine has the physical ability to mark votes onto the ballot after the last time the voter sees the ballot. And that's a disaster if we lose the ability to trust that the paper trail really represents what the voter intended.
Andrew Appel is a professor of computer science at Princeton University.
My research is in software verification and election machinery.
He's an election security expert who has testified before Congress and been featured in Politico magazine.
Image Cast Evolution, where it's used in the United States. New Mexico in 2013, Ohio and Tennessee in 2013, California, Florida, Minnesota, Virginia, and Wisconsin in 2016.
The machine is a combination ballot marking device and optical scanner. According to information on the company's website, the voting machine is the only optical scan tabulator using a single ballot paper path. That means it's a printer and a scanner in one.
If the machine is hacked, then they can install software that marks votes on the ballot after the voter last saw it. And if the piece of paper can be marked by the computer after the last time the voter saw it, and the whole paper trail is compromised.
Security experts do not believe that the ICE machine is the only voting machine being sold with the ability to add votes to paper ballots. Appel and other computer scientists believe that two versions of the Express Vote, a ballot marking device by another company, ES&S, have the same capability. That machine has already been purchased by half a dozen states, sometimes, like in Philadelphia, over strong community opposition against expert advice.
These barcodes go against the recommendation of the Blue Ribbon Commission on Pennsylvania's election security.
And with indications that there were conflicts of interest in the procurement process.
There were many issues in this process that are troubling.
6 swing states have now purchased voting machines that security experts say have this problem, including the critical states of Florida, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. In New York, the purchase of hybrid voting equipment could be moving forward rapidly. The Board of Elections of New York City, serving over 4.5 million registered voters, requested permission to fast-track purchase of these machines, bypass state certification, and start using the Express Vote XL in its upcoming 2019 elections. And although the state said no to bypassing certification, the machine is still under consideration for use. Just north of the city, another of New York's largest counties, Westchester, is also taking a look.
Our current machines have deteriorated.
Anticipating spending $6 million on the acquisition. At a Board of Legislators meeting in February, the sales rep from Dominion demonstrated how the machine worked and answered questions.
My name is Gio Costantello, and I'm here to present the ICE machine.
But Professor Appel disagreed with many of the Dominion vendors' claims.
Can you hack into the machines we have now?
No.
Any voting machine can be hacked. To hack into the voting machine company, all it takes is one person clicking on the wrong email, and now the adversary is into the network and can steal cryptographic keys to install software in voting machines. Then that voting machine cheats for the rest of the time without you having to touch it.
Appel disagreed that the machines were faster.
We're not printing the ballot, we're only marking it. It's a matter of seconds.
But it still takes quite a few minutes for a voter to use the ballot-marking device feature. And during that time, on this machine, you can't have other voters feed their pen-marked ballots through the machine.
He disagreed that they were less expensive.
This machine accommodates both of those functions in one self-contained machine, much more cost-effectively.
The price quoted in the Westchester County meeting for these machines was $14,000 each. You can buy an optical scan voting machine for $4,000 or $5,000, and you can buy a ballot marking device for $4,000 or $5,000. It's not a savings. This machine is more insecure and much more expensive than standard ways of counting optical scan ballots.
That sets the issue up pretty clearly. I think we can see there that the security experts that we spoke with Andrew Appel, and later in the series, I also spoke with security expert Rich DeMillo at Georgia Tech, and all of them were very concerned about this machine. I'm going to bring on a guest now, Ruth Walter, who is a legislator in Westchester and actually had to vote in that exact process. So we're really, really pleased to have her here with us. And Ruth, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Lulu. I'm so glad to be here, and I think your video was very instructive. And we are now owners of 400 of those machines based on our vote last Monday. I was one of 5 legislators who voted no, but 12 is the required number, and there were 12 yeses.
So let's back up a little bit. One of the goals of our evening right now is to think about how to win battles. So in Westchester, in regard to that Dominion ICE machine, we did lose that battle. As Ruth just said, the county, after about a year of sort of struggling with this decision, did succumb to pressure from their election commissioners who came to the board. Ruth is on the Board of Legislators there in Westchester County, New York, and the election commissioners came to the Board of Legislators multiple times and asked for this funding. In the piece, we said $6 million. It was kind of 2 different installments, some for electronic poll books and some for the machines. So they did put a lot of pressure on you. And what I think our viewers are really interested in is what your process was like. This is a really rare opportunity for them to really get inside what a legislator goes through. You had your election commissioners begging you for these machines, saying they were absolutely necessary, and you had all these advocates coming to your meeting saying these are dangerous. You had security experts saying they were dangerous. When did you first hear about the machines?
So last year, I came to a Board of Legislators task force on voter reforms that had happened at the state level, and I heard about this problem, as Professor Appel calls it, a design flaw. And until my vote, I was not convinced that this was addressed correctly. And so they are expensive. We are basically in the middle of a huge budget crunch right now because of COVID and, you know, the lack of sales tax, which is what we rely on. So when I came to the board, just as a regular citizen to listen last year, I did understand at that time that this was a security risk. I've learned so much more because the commissioners came to the board and sat through 5 hours of questioning and testimony by the legislators, and they gave testimony. And it was very different because earlier in June, they had come and it had been very confused and sort of, you know, I think we need 250. I'm not sure how many do we gonna get. No, it was very unconvincing.
They went through a series of I think that Nancy Barr asked them, how many voting machines do you need? And it was really like a comedy show almost. They went back and forth to each other. They were like, we need all 400. And then like Reggie would turn to Doug, and then Doug would go, what about maybe 100? And then Reggie would go, no, at least 200. And then Doug would go like, well, maybe 300. And it was like a comedy routine, and it was very unconvincing because what happened in the primary was that they actually closed many, many precincts. You guys normally have over 300 precincts, and they only opened 63 precincts. Now, there are advocates who believe that they did that deliberately in order to create a bottleneck, make the primary go badly, and then come back to the Board of Legislators and say, look, see, we need those voting machines. But they had 1,000 voting machines in storage that they did not use, correct?
Right. And so what I learned in that whole experience, and they were much more open. I went to the warehouse, I saw the machines. There's two kinds, right? There's A machines and B machines.
And a lot of people don't know that A and B technology. So in Westchester, they have a sort of unique naming. They have their scanners, they call them A machines. They have their ballot marking devices, they call them B machines. I don't feel comfortable with that. I think voters with disabilities do not appreciate having a machine called the B machine. So I usually just call them a scanner and a ballot marking device, but you have both.
So the reason it's kind of interesting to make that distinction is because by law, you must have one ballot marking device per polling location. And so the sort of argument was we need enough of the ballot marking devices in order to open and run our election. And what they did was they actually ran the election. All voters voted on the hybrids. They didn't have any of the pure scanners. And we had not voted in June. They came and they said, we need these machines. And we were like 3 weeks away from early voting. And we felt like this is very rushed and we're not quite sure whether you have your training set up. And, we just didn't feel convinced. But then they went to the state and bought 120 of the hybrid machines with the CARES grant. And so those are the machines that they ran the primary on. And the primary did not go well. We had lines till 1 a.m. in Mamaroneck. We had people standing in line in Yonkers in the heat. And a lot of these are disenfranchising events. So
I want to make a point here that people should really pay attention to this. These election commissioners wanted these machines very badly. We don't know why exactly. We know from last forum when Doug Jones came on, he said that vendors have long-standing kind of good old boy relationships with election commissioners, and this goes back for decades. They have these tight relationships with the vendors. For some reason, they wanted these machines very badly, and they were willing to use these pretty heavy-handed tactics of basically shutting down hundreds of polling locations during the primary, creating all these long lines. So people should be aware that there are some pretty heavy-handed tactics being used to get these machines through. And I just want to make one other point here about the CARES money. This is something that Smart Elections has been really trying to get the message out. There's a big, big push from the voting rights community to get $4 billion into the states to help run the election, in the November election. And the states need that money, no doubt. But when those funds come with no restrictions on how they can be used, that money, those very large sums of money, get used to buy bad voting machines, hybrid voting machines, touchscreen voting machines, expensive voting machines that states and counties otherwise do not have the funds to buy. And that is exactly what happened here. The commissioners in Westchester used $1.2 million from the CARES money, which was supposed to be the COVID-19 money, to buy hybrid voting machines. So make note that federal funding needs to come with requirements. And we have a letter on our website. You could look at the smartelections.us website under Take Action, and you'll see a letter there you can send to Congress about that. But to go back to Westchester, and this is something I want people to take note, Ruth was listening to election security experts. So people, when you're sending election security information to your legislators, they're listening. So you were impacted, yes?
And yes, because, okay, I am on 6 committees. You know, I'm on environment and health, and I'm on transportation and public works. And so we need to hear, and I said this in my testimony, cybersecurity is moving faster than any of us could possibly catch up to. But we look to experts like Professor Apple and you, and people who are really deep diving into these issues. And I do believe that that's a good conversation to have, because I do bring IT a background to my job as legislator. I was in IT for many years. I did installation and support, user documentation and troubleshooting. So I'm very comfortable, talking about applications and how not as comfortable as Benny. Benny, he's fantastic. But so I'm familiar.
We're going to see Benny in a minute. Benny's going to be introduced. They don't know him yet, maybe, but okay.
But so it was enough for me to understand, we need to pay attention to the experts in the field and to the experts outside of our bubble here. And I just want to also emphasize that one of the reasons I voted no was because I wanted Westchester to be a leader on this. And I wanted Westchester to not transmit this idea that these are okay, because many, many other counties are going to look in New York State, are going to look to Westchester and say, well, they bought these machines, they must be fine. And, I expect, we have very sophisticated and intelligent and dedicated people here who all want election security, and I expect us to take it into account. And I was disappointed that my colleagues voted to purchase these machines, and I'm nervous about the election. I think everybody is.
Right. So I really appreciate that you did that. There were 5 legislators on the Board of Legislators in Westchester County that voted against this $3.3 million bond to buy these machines. And I think all of the advocates who worked on this so hard are very grateful to all of you, and really appreciate that very courageous vote. If we had had one more vote, no vote, we would have won, and they wouldn't have been able to purchase those machines. So keep in mind, the work that you're doing, people, is very important. The legislator you contact could be the one vote that switches, that gets you the machines that are better. That's what we're looking for to start with as a base level, is better technology. So we're going to bring in, I really thank you. And I wanted to point out one other thing, because when I was speaking to you before, you said there were actually 2 activists that kind of affected your thinking when you were sort of sorting through all this. You started following Jenny Cohn on Twitter. You told me that.
I did. And hand-made paper ballots, hand-marked paper ballots. That's our gold standard.
Yeah, and so I think that's really great to hear that was impacting you. And you also told me that Julie Weiner, who was an advocate in Westchester, had sent you some information that you found very useful.
Yes, this is about, she wants audits to be allowed or to go forward when only one commissioner agrees. So obviously, as we talked before, the requirement that both commissioners agree to an audit makes a little bit of no sense, or makes no sense at all, because obviously one commissioner is going to be happy with the results. So it should be one commissioner is enough to say we should have an audit.
Exactly. That's a piece of legislation that Smart Elections has actually helped to author. And we're trying to improve the auditing here in New York so that if either side has concerns about the count, the audit can be escalated. So I just want to make that point again, that advocates are impacting legislators. You were impacted by the information that you received. And I think everybody was really, really grateful for the way that you voted. So thank you so much for that. And I'm going to bring on a different advocate now. We're going to bring on Kathy Collins. Kathy, I'm going to add you in, and we're going to say so long to Ruth for now. And thanks so much to her for being on here. And actually, Kathy, before I add you, we're going to play one more clip from the videos, and this is going to talk about voters with disabilities and how they felt about these Dominion voting machines in Westchester. It was very interesting. The election commissioners were saying that the voters with disabilities wanted the Dominion ICE machines, and I was actually shocked to find out when I went and interviewed them that was not the case.
Here at the Westchester Independent Living Center, a resource for people with disabilities. So the Dominion ICE voting machine has a design flaw so serious that election security experts said you cannot be confident in the results of an election held on this machine. But it was being moved forward here in Westchester County by the Board of Elections as a machine that the disabled community was supporting.
Remember why these machines are there. It's for the handicapped community.
Well, it turns out the disability community doesn't like this machine either.
We did not support the machine. We were not given an opportunity to test the machine. So that's what I want to talk about, okay?
I don't know who those individuals are that are supporting that machine, because it certainly has not been our organization, and we are a well-established disability organization in this county for 38 years.
Those few people that were allowed to test it did not give it a thumbs up. It did not test well.
At the fundamental core of it, it's a design problem. If what's being described is accurate, the Dominion ICE will create much longer lines.
Westchester Independent Living Center is not alone in its opposition to the ICE machine. 5 separate New York disability advocacy groups have come out against it, including Disabled on the Move, which said in an email, "We are not advocating for its purchase in Westchester."
I'm absolutely stunned. That was not what we heard.
So there you have really a very different impression of what the disability advocacy groups were supporting than what the election commissioners were saying. And I'm going to bring on another disability advocate that we have here. Hi, Kathy.
Hi, how are you?
It's so great to have you with us. Let's put up Kathy's.
I didn't give you anything.
We didn't get your Twitter handle. Do you have it? Are you on Twitter?
I am, but I like to be a farmer.
Okay, so she wants to be a little bit discreet on Twitter. But here we had a banner that we put up: accessible, private, independent, and secure. And this is something that I think is really important. When we talk about voting machines for voters with disabilities, we hear, for the most part, that voters with disabilities deserve and need to have accessible, private, and independent experience. And I think it's very important that voters with disabilities also have a secure and accurate experience, and that your votes are counted accurately. And I wanted to know how you felt about that.
Why vote if your vote is not going to be counted accurately? I mean, that seems ridiculous. Every United States citizen has a right to have that feeling that their vote will be counted. And especially for the disability community, because we have to go that extra step to get out there to the voting sites. And we've had to fight for the right to vote over so many years. I know when I started to vote, I had to vote by an absentee ballot because my local polling site was not accessible. It was a school and it was all stairs. There were no ramps at that time. And this was back in the, 1970s. And I started to vote when I was 18. And now I'm 62. And I have voted.
You look fantastic. Oh my God.
And I have voted in every election. I even voted on September 11th that morning before I went off to work. I went to vote at like 7 o'clock, and then I went off to work, and I was working down at the World Trade Center. So, and I just luckily left the building before the attack. But I have always voted, and I will continue to vote. And it was only in the past few years that I have been able to actually vote on my own without needing someone's assistance. Even when I was able to actually get into a polling site, in the old days, you had those polling machines that you had the levers.
Yeah.
First of all, I couldn't pull the lever to close the curtain. And then I couldn't reach the levers inside to turn them for the candidate's name. So I would always have to bring a friend in with me to do that. But now with the ballot marking devices, I have total freedom. And the thing I want to make clear, a ballot marking device is not a voting machine. It is just like it is in lieu of a pen for a person. And it can be used many different ways. You can have the sip and puff version. You can sip and puff into it. You can I think people have used pens. I use prosthetic arms, and I will just hit the buttons on the machine, and someone will help me feed it in, and then I wait and fill it out, and then pull it out and put it into the folder, bring it over to the scanner where someone will assist me putting it into the scanner. The scanner is the voting device.
Right. That's the tabulator.
Right. The ballot marking device is just, like I said, in lieu of a writing instrument. It's another way for people to vote. And also it's another way for people to see the ballot. For those who have visual impairments, you have audio. And for people who have low vision, or just you're getting older and you need it larger print, you can make it large on the screen. So you have all these options available to you.
Exactly.
And, I think maybe that gentleman, he hopefully may have misspoke in that he thinks that, yes, we do want ballot marking devices, and we want them to be available, and we want them to work, and we want them to be up and running before we get to the polling site. I've seen that many times where people have told stories where the ballot marking device is not operating when they get there.
Right. And that's something that I really, that's something that I found out a lot about when I interviewed Lisa Terracone for this piece. I was just stunned at how many difficult scenarios that she described to me. She said, first off, they had to sue the Westchester County Board of Elections, I believe multiple times, because the ballot marking devices, even though they were mandated to be there by HAVA, they weren't there, or when they would go, they weren't maintained. Poll workers weren't trained. They weren't set up. No one knew how to use them. And so even though in theory, the HAVA law mandated that these ballot marking devices would be available, they often weren't. And it was incredibly frustrating for her. And she let me know. Yeah.
People still have problems. I know
Absolutely.
a friend of mine had a problem out in Long Island where they had the ballot marking devices upstairs, an elevator that is not working, and they have the scanning devices downstairs. So she really didn't even know whether her vote was counted because she couldn't go downstairs to see whether they put it in the scanner or if they just tossed it into a trash bag.
Right.
I mean, really, it's talk about voter suppression around the country. Voter suppression is happening here right in New York State.
We do understand, I think, and the more that you get involved and work with the disability community, the more you will come to understand how many obstacles voters with disabilities face in terms of trying to vote. And that's one reason why I think it's so important, as you said, because the community has gone through so many obstacles, that their votes be counted. And one term that I use, that I've been using, is democracy theater. And what we don't want is democracy theater. We don't want for people just to go to the polls and have a good feeling that they voted, but then their vote isn't counted or is counted for a candidate that they don't support. That's democracy theater, but it isn't what we're looking for. We're looking for real democracy, real votes that are counted, are secure, are accurate, are transparent. And voters with disabilities deserve that every bit as much.
And we are the largest minority, and we're the minority that anyone can join it. In the blink of an eye, you can become disabled. So, I mean, everybody has a bone in this fight. Because any of you can become one of us and need these BMDs and that. And we want to do it. We want everyone to be using the BMD. I have my boyfriend who is not disabled using the BMD now, because the more people that use it, the more the Board of Elections will realize how important they are, and that people, that we need those.
I think that's very important. And I've been trying to use the BMD when, and just get used to that idea. But I think what's important is that it be secure. So what security experts are recommending, and we're going to have Benny Smith on in a second, and Garland Favorito, who are both very well-versed in technology, to talk about kind of these different options. But what security experts recommend is a separate scanner and a printer. And voters with disabilities and voters without disabilities deserve to have their votes counted, and we need to be listening to what security experts are saying. So thank you so much for coming on today. And one of the other things that I really want to encourage people to do when you're working in your election security communities is reach out to voters with disabilities and work with them. Bring them into your election security groups.
We have, can I put a plug in for 2 groups?
You can, yes.
I'm on the board of Disabled in Action, even though I'm not speaking on their behalf. I'm just speaking on my own behalf right today for both groups. But we have Disabled in Action, which is a grassroots organization. And we also have Long Island Adapt, which is now going to be launching a new organization called Downstate Adapt in the next few days. And that's going to actually encompass among Long Island, Nassau, and Suffolk County, the 5 counties of New York City, plus Westchester, Orange, Putnam, Rockland, Dutchess, and Sullivan County. So we hope,
That's great. So thank you so much for all the work that you're doing, and keep in touch with us. And then I'm really encouraging people who are working after this in breakout groups with scrutineers. Really make a point in your breakout groups of finding voters with disabilities in your region and connecting with them, because when security communities,
and you can be a member of us, you don't have to be disabled, you can become a member.
Absolutely. When right now, a lot of times we're seeing the security community and the disability community work at odds with each other, like fighting all the time. Like, the security community will say, we don't want any ballot marking devices, really being disrespectful. And the disability community will sometimes disregard the security and, say, well, whatever, we're just going to vote on the machines no matter what. But these 2 groups have to work together in order for us to solve this problem. It's about collaboration and respect. And I really, really appreciate you coming on today and all the work. Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm going to bring Benny Smith on now. He is really got a really, really interesting story. And I think a lot of people here probably know him already. So thanks so much for being with us, Ruth. And let's get Benny on here. And I think I'm going to bring you and Garland on at the same time, actually, because I know that you guys know each other, and I'll talk a little bit about your background. Both Benny and Garland have technology backgrounds. We're super, super lucky to have them both here with us. And I think we're going to take some questions also from the audience for them. So I just want to start out, I'll give a little bit of background. Benny is really a success story in terms of when we're talking about how to win battles. This episode here is about how to win battles. Now, I know we just lost a battle in Westchester County, New York, and they bought the Dominion Ice machines, even though we fought against them for a year. But Benny Smith actually has a really great story about a win that he had in Shelby County, Tennessee, where they were able to change election commissioners and have drastically different results in their election. So can you give us like a really quick, brief summary of that, of those events that happened starting, I think, around 2015, Benny?
Yes, so it was around 2010 was the beginning of the changing of the guard of the parties who were in control of conducting elections. The party switched from Democrat to Republican, and up until 2018, I want to say, there was complete dominance in the county, which is a large Democrat county, a large representation of Democrats, mostly African American, but large Democrat county. And in 2014, there were a number of really household name candidates that lost their elections, and they kind of petitioned me as software developer, but also astute person in demographics and politics, to look at the systems. And because I write code, as a consolation prize, maybe, I decided that I would look at the application for them.
So let me just jump in here, because your audio is a little bit muffled. I don't know if can you get on a mic or get that audio any better?
Is that better?
I think it might be, yeah. So I'm just going to speed this along because we don't have a lot of time for this. But Benny was basically working as an advisor to a lot of campaigns because he does a lot of statistical analysis of voting results and demographics. He's got a background in finance. He's sort of got his brain works in a lot of different ways in working with election results, and also, as I said, in finance. So he had these candidates coming to him and saying, we don't know why we lost. We don't really believe these results. And so he wound up looking into it. And you found this program in the machines that they're using there in Shelby County, Tennessee, that you understood allowed the votes to be counted with fractions. Is that correct?
Yeah, I looked at the design of all election systems, and I just focused. I learned it from my county, and it allowed us to be tabulated as if we're counting money.
And so what that means is, like, my vote might be counted for 1.5 and your vote might be counted for half, right?
Yeah, it was fractional counting.
Right, and that system actually, that system actually exists in many of the voting machines across the country. The software for that program exists in many systems, right?
Yes, it's an infrastructure or framework.
And so all Benny did a kind of a white hat hack. What he did was create a proof of concept. He demonstrated that you could slightly tweak that software and make it actually change votes from one candidate to another using fractions, right?
Correct.
And then he also, so that was one thing that he did. He just discovered that program, which was a huge revelation to a lot of people around the country. He's kind of an underground star in the election security community. And because of that, and he was covered by Bloomberg News, and also the Bloomberg Cyber program did an episode on him. I think he's being followed by PBS now. So you should definitely follow him on Twitter. We have his Twitter account up there. He's really done some fascinating work. And then, but one of the things I think that was most interesting that you did in Shelby County, Tennessee, and this is where I want to talk about wins and winning, you did an analysis of where you thought, if there was going to be a poll tape, if there were going to be results that would have to be manipulated, which precinct they would be in. And you went and you took a photograph of that precinct and a couple other precincts, right?
Correct. If you're going to have any type of anomalies, they have to happen in dense areas. So I picked one of the dense precincts of our county, and I took a picture of the tabulated results. They posted in the window on election night. And then I waited for the aggregated tabulated results. And when I took the picture, it was 548 votes. But when it hit the central tabulator and they reported the unofficial totals, 548 was represented as 330 votes. So it had lost
hundreds of votes.
Correct.
In that one precinct.
Yep.
And there were other precincts where that happened also.
Yeah, I think it was in total it was around 20 precincts that had lost value on when the votes were tabulated.
And so that all became public, and Bloomberg did an investigation, and there was a court battle. And at that time, in a predominantly African American, predominantly Democratic county, they had been electing Republican officials for years and years and years. And then the election commissioner resigned because of this whole information that you brought forward. And what happened when they got a new election commissioner in the next county election, after they'd been electing, I think, white Republicans for years, right?
Yeah, it was a drastic turn of fortune. If you look at the analytics, is the voters who are Democrat who typically vote are Black females. And in 2018, we had our first countywide major election, and I think the lion's share of the candidates who won were Black females. So it looked more representative of the people who were voting.
You changed
right after the administrator.
You changed the election commissioners, and after that, instead of white Republicans, you elected, I think, 9 Black women, right?
It was a good number of them.
Yeah. So this is what we're talking about when we say that the election equipment, the voting equipment, and the election commissioners and who's running them, these can really, really make a difference in whether or not you're winning or losing elections, whether or not the votes are being counted accurately and transparently. So one of the other things that came out of that is that Benny is now an election commissioner in Shelby County, Tennessee. Congratulations.
That's a thankful job that I'll take.
So that's another thing that you can do. You can become an election commissioner. You can run for county, you become a county clerk, become a poll watcher, an election observer, run for Secretary of State. Often it's the Secretary of State who is the person most responsible for elections. So get out there and get into those positions. We need honest people who understand technology and want transparent elections in those positions. So let's take a question. Do we have any questions from the audience for Benny? And then we're going to loop Garland in as well. Do we have some questions from the audience? Chris, anything that you thought was a good question for Benny? Oh, wait, you're muted. Hang on. Okay.
I don't have any questions ready for you right now. Why don't you move on, and then I'll collect some questions.
Okay, guys, put in some questions for Benny into the comments if you have questions for him. So now, Benny, I'm going to take you off stage for a while people get their comments ready for you and talk to Garland. So Garland, you are in Georgia, right?
Yeah, I'm in Georgia, which has been ranked as having the worst electronic voting systems in the country for 17 or 18 years.
Oh my God, who ranks those?
It started back in 2004 with Free Congress Foundation. We got our first electronic voting system in 2002. Prior to that, I think I was the first guy in America who publicly objected to a statewide implementation of unverifiable electronic voting. So those machines were not only unverifiable, but they were not auditable, and they had no recount capability. They only reprinted the previous unverifiable results.
Now those were the original. They're called DREs, direct record electronic machines, that Georgia had. Georgia was the first state to buy them for the entire state in 2002. They had a whole series of elections that were very surprising in terms of their results after they bought those machines, right? Didn't they have some very surprising results?
Yeah, two major upsets. In fact, I think Sean Hannity referred to it as the earthquake in Georgia in the U.S. Senate and governor races. Prior to that, the purchase in 2002, Lulu, I objected to the purchase on the grounds of that since if it's not verifiable, auditable, and recount capable, it would be unconstitutional.
And so Garland has been with his group Voter GA taking lawsuits, pressing lawsuits for years and years in Georgia, some really great lawsuits. And there's other people, Marilyn Marx and Coalition for Good Governance are also currently, I think, engaged in about 6 lawsuits in Georgia. So what was the result of that first lawsuit that you pressed?
Yeah, so that's exactly right, Lulu. So the first lawsuit we took to the Georgia Supreme Court, and they basically, we had a case where we filed in state court. We had 13 charges, and if we'd have won any one of them, we would have booted the systems out of Georgia. But the judge ruled against us on all 13 counts, and we found that they had in 17 cases, 17 different conclusions had no basis in fact or evidence in the actual case itself. We appealed to the Georgia Supreme Court and lost in the Georgia Supreme Court. However, as you mentioned, Lulu, Marilyn Marx then followed up on this with Coalition for Good Governance. And just last year, the U.S. District Court ruled that the machines were in fact unconstitutional and banned them, which is the same thing that I had said, 17 years earlier.
Right. So I just want to make a point here to people, because this is one of the key points that I want to come out of this episode. You filed your first lawsuit in 2002?
Actually, 2006.
2006. So the machines came in, and these were direct record electronic machines. Those are machines that have no paper record except for like a printout of what the computer says, like a grocery receipt almost. But the vote itself is always recorded on the computer's hard drive. So they're very easy to hack. They're considered completely insecure by security experts. And so these machines, a lawsuit was brought in 2006. They lost on every count. And it wasn't until, was it last year that Coalition for Good Governance got them thrown out in 2019?
That's right.
2019. So that's 13 years, people. 13 years from 2006 to 2019. That's 13 years, 2 lawsuits in order to get voting machines that were immediately considered insecure by experts across the country thrown out. And this is just to say that this is a long-term battle. So we are bringing you here every 2 weeks because this isn't a one-off. This isn't something that you can come in and work on for a couple weeks and like, whoa, we won, let's go. All the votes are, secure and the machines are working great. This is a long-term battle. It's a long haul, and there's a lot of intractable problems in our system. The courts are giving deference to commissioners who are sometimes untruthful or not knowledgeable about technology. There's a lot of very bad decisions that are happening, and it's ingrained in the system. So we want you to come in, get educated, informed, and commit to working on this even a little bit each week. This is a long-term battle, and we need you. We need this to go big. We need to scale up. So, and I'm going to also put some fundraising please up at the end too. So keep in mind, we're going to ask people to donate $5 a month if you can, to help us scale up. So we got a question here from Victoria Olson. Need to know how the folks in Georgia detected the machine wasn't reading all votes on the ballots. What was their process? That was from Jean and Adam's work, right? Do you know about that?
That's right, Lulu. So Jeannie was an election she was working on, and in a particular county, and they were verifying the votes. And as part of that process, they're using adjudication software for the mail-in votes. And the adjudication software will show you that it counted these votes, it did not count those votes, and these are up for adjudication so that you can determine whether or not to count them. And what they noticed is that votes that were not being counted at all should have been up for adjudication and should have been counted. And they then documented that. We found that it was a problem that is happening throughout the state in multiple counties, and that was in fact a software problem, either with the scanners or I think it was with the scanners actually, or the accumulators. It could be.
It was determined that the scanners were not programmed to detect enough of the vote. They were the way that the scanners had been programmed was so that if the vote wasn't completely filled in, the scanner was not necessarily counting that vote. And that's very, very dangerous to realize that the scanners can be programmed to not count all the votes. That's a very, very dangerous option to be toggled on. I'm going to get Benny on here because we've got a question for Benny. Benny, the question is, I realize that BMDs and other computerized devices can never be made fully secure, but I still have a question about improving the landscape. Can we get network drivers out of the machines?
Yes and no. I think the BMDs are not deal breakers, to say it lightly. You still have to have a BMD for voters with disabilities. The importance of the BMDs is that it's accessible, that it's private, that it can be done independently, and then there's some security measures around it. And the way you get that is you just separate the printer from the scanner in the instance that is in New York. As far as the network drivers, any type of hardware has to go through firmware updates. So,
Benny, can you get more on your mic somehow? It's so echoey.
I don't know. It sounds fine for me, but is it better now?
That's better. Yes, hold the mic there, please.
The drivers, they're going to always be threat vectors. I think the most important thing for people to understand is, we're not attacking voting election technology with any less fervor that we do for every other computer system. We have long for years and decades talked about the vulnerabilities in regular computers, right? A regular Windows program, a regular Mac can suffer from viruses. And somehow that has not been attributed to voting technology. So you have to take the same mitigations and precautions with voting technology, which is probably, some of this technology is probably more inferior than an iPad 1. So if you look at it in its proper place of computational ranking, you see that you do have to pay attention to it. But the hand-marked paper ballot is technically where you do it. I say all the time when I explain this, I'm an automation specialist. I write code to automate tasks. And I always say you have to be able to do a task, and I have to be able to see that it's repeatable manually. And if it's not, then I don't want to automate it. Well, voting is one of the most repeatable tasks that can be accomplished manually. But that doesn't mean you should automate it. it means you should just carry it out in a manual manner so that the technology can assist in counting it, but you still have to have some safeguards there. So you don't get rid of it, you just control it. And that's where you have audits at the end of the process to make sure that it was counted fairly. I think I got another question.
I'm sorry, Laura, we have to move on. We've only got 6 minutes. We have another guest. So you'll have to take the, you'll have to, I don't know, and now we have Garland's idea. So you'll have to take those questions into the comments and Benny try to answer them in the comments because I need to bring.
They can put them on Twitter too, and then we can do it in a breakout.
Okay, that's great. So we need to bring up our last guest, and I'm so excited to have her on. So this is Catherine Parker. Thank you so much for joining us. So what's happening now, we have these battles all over the country. We talked about how we lost in Westchester County, New York, against the Dominion ice machines, how in Georgia they fought their voting machines there for 13 years, and they're just really starting to, win a few court cases. They still actually have a very bad system there, the Dominion ICX, which is a touch screen system. I didn't get a chance to go into the details with that with Garland, but it's another system that is very insecure. It counts votes with barcodes. And I believe that you're an election supervisor in Wisconsin, in Lake Tomahawk. Is that correct?
Yes, actually, I'm one of the...
Oh, no, we've got to get your mic on.
Is that better?
Your audio's going in and out a little bit. Try to stay right on your mic.
Okay. I'm a poll worker in Lake Tomahawk, and I'm the chief inspector right now for our town. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. And then what you told me when we spoke, you told me that the Wisconsin towns are about to purchase these Dominion Ice and ICX machines. Is that correct?
Yes. And our elections management company that serves over half the counties in Wisconsin has just told us all that they're not continuing to support our current machines in 2022. So this change isn't meant to happen until 2022, as far as I now know. But they've contracted with Dominion. They're rolling out the ICE machines and the ICX, and that's what was demonstrated to us at the county courthouse. And most of the towns don't know how to deal with sophisticated election voting machines and all this other stuff. So I'm the only one apparently that looked into this, and I'm the only one raising questions. But it looks like all the towns are rolling over because there's a hard sell by Dominion, and they're offering a price break if we buy them this month, which that's 2 years away. It doesn't make any sense to me. So our town board is meeting tomorrow to decide if they're going to buy them. I'm hoping to convince them not to. And I'm asking our county clerk, what are our options? And the biggest question is, how do we know what are good machines?
Right. Well, the basic recommendation from security experts is keep your scanner and your printer separate. So a separate scanner and a separate ballot marking device. And this is another heavy-handed tactic that the vendors are using. They're discontinuing the old machines, or they're saying that they are, in order to push these new expensive machines with these vulnerabilities. So I talked to Andrew Appel. I emailed with him this afternoon, and he told me that the salesman told him that the Dominion ImageCast precinct scanner, which is a regular scanner, and their ballot marking device were available in New Jersey. This was last year for about $4,000 each. It's so much less expensive. And they have them apparently in stock, or they did just last year. So why they won't sell them now is a big mystery. So we're going to have to leave it there, but we are going to breakout groups. Thank you so much for coming on. Anybody who's in Wisconsin, is there a way for them to get in touch with you, Catherine? I know you said you're not on Twitter, but how would people reach you and give you support?
You can send out my email if you want to.
Do you want me to put that into our email blast that we do after this call?
Sure.
Okay, so we'll send out Catherine's email so that, or people, the other thing that you can do if you want to be in touch with Catherine, you can just email me. You can email us, contact@smartelections.us. If there's anybody in Wisconsin who can help. And one of the things, we're going to go to breakout sessions next. We did not have a Wisconsin breakout session tonight. I'm sorry, we did not get a leader from Wisconsin to help, but I know that we do have really good advocates in Wisconsin. I'd like to also put you in touch with Karen McKim. She is the organizer for Wisconsin Election Integrity, and they've been terrific on so many things. So I'll try to just remind me to put you in touch with Karen, and anybody, maybe the Scrutineers breakout group can see if anybody from Wisconsin can connect with Catherine Parker and see there's a meeting at Lake Tomahawk tomorrow. Yeah, so we need people probably to go to that meeting and to help Catherine out.
This has all happened very quickly.
It does. They do this very fast. That's what happens in Westchester too. They called that vote fast. After a year of not asking for stuff, all of a sudden it was like, bam, they wanted the vote and we lost. So yeah, it happens fast. So I'm going to thank you so much for coming on and for everything that you're doing, and we'll try to get people in touch that can help you. Please reach out to Catherine Parker in Lake Tomahawk and help her with the voting equipment purchases there. All over Wisconsin it's happening, right? Not just in Lake Tomahawk, in town after town.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, yeah. So reach out to her and help there in Wisconsin. So now we're going to go to breakout groups. It's 8 o'clock. We're so excited that so many people were on the call. And we have breakout groups in a lot of different states. A breakout group is basically just where we go from this YouTube kind of interview format to smaller groups where everybody can talk to each other and connect by region. And we have breakout groups in these states: Florida, Georgia, Indiana, North Carolina, New Jersey, New York, and South Carolina. If you registered for this event, then you got the breakout group Zoom link. So we're going to Zoom. And if you didn't register, you can still go to the Eventbrite and register and get those Zoom links. You can register until 8:30. So you can get those Zoom links sent to you, or you can also go to the Scrutineers, which is just for everybody who's not in one of those regions or who just wants to jump into Scrutineers. And you're like, what's Scrutineers? I'm going to tell you right now. I'm going to bring on Emily Levy.
I was just going to say, we have Emily waiting in case you didn't notice.
Yep.
So let's bring her on.
Okay, Emily, talk to us about Scrutineers.
Hi, Lulu. Thanks so much for inviting me on, and thanks for this session. I'm glad you're doing this. Scrutineers.org is a new online community for election protection, and it's designed to help you learn about in depth about the kinds of issues that Smart Elections is covering in this election security series, to get trained on different methods of protecting the elections and connect with other people in your area so you can work together to protect the elections where you live. So we have groups forming in many states around the country. In fact, some of the breakout group leaders are leaders of our small groups, which we call circles, in those states. So you may hear about Scrutineers even if you go to one of the state groups. So because we're a national community, we welcome you no matter where you are in the country, or even if you're outside of the US, to come to our breakout group and you'll learn more. And whether or not you come to the breakout group, you can go to scrutineers.org and join us and learn more about these issues and how you can take action.
Absolutely. And we are really working. Smart Elections is a project that focuses on different actions that people can take to try to improve their elections. And Scrutineers is an organization that brings people together to give them a place to meet and talk and get trained. So we have very parallel missions. We're really working hand in glove together to try to help each other to make progress on protecting the election. So I'm really, really grateful for all the work that Emily's doing and all the people who have joined Scrutineers. We encourage everybody on this call who's participating in this series to join Scrutineers. It's, I believe, just $1.99.
It is. It's that we charge a one-time fee of $1.99, which is basically to keep bots out of the site so that we can do our work without interruption.
Right. I don't think Emily's getting rich on that. I'm sorry to say. I wish she was.
Not yet. Hasn't happened yet.
Okay. But please join Scrutineers. There's a lot of resources there. I've already connected with people working in different states. I met some of the circle leaders like Susie Hart in South Carolina, was not aware of all the great work that she's doing. Met Stephen Hanks, who's running the New York circle. And I'm already just meeting more people who I wasn't aware of who are doing really good work. And so
it's a great combination of people who have been working on this issue for these issues for a long time and people who are just getting started.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're going to break. We're a little bit over time. So please go to your breakout groups. If you didn't get the Zoom links, then just go to the easiest, fastest way to get the Zoom links is to go to our website, which is smartelections.us. And I think we've got it. Oh, that's our donate page. I'll talk about that. But just for starters, to get the link for the Zoom links, go to smartelections.us. I think we have just a smartelections.us banner, don't we? Yeah, so smartelections.us is I know Chris is trying to keep up with me. It's still not what I want. I just want smartelections.us. So you wind up on our front page so people can get their YouTube channels if they,
wait, I thought it was Zoom links, not YouTube channels that you're sending people to.
Right, I'm sorry. So if you go to our website.
There you go.
There we go. That's what I'm looking for. If you don't have the Zoom links, go to smartelections.us, and right there on our front page is where to click to get the Eventbrite. And you will go there, register, like RSVP for this event. It'll take you 2 minutes, and you will get the list. Or right there on the Eventbrite page, actually, it has all of I think most of the latest Zoom links. So you can get them there, or you can register and get the email, and you'll get them. So I am going to just take a quick plug before we go. We do need a number of things at Smart Elections. We really, really could use you to donate. You can go to this link and donate. It's tax deductible. We are a not-for-profit, and we are really encouraging people to do a $5 a month donation. Our goal by next year is to have 1,200 $5 a month donations so that we can be stable and have an ongoing, growing organization to help protect the elections every day. So is it worth it to you? $5 a month? It's like one cappuccino a month just to know that election protection is happening. So please do that. And then we also need volunteers. We already started to get some really good volunteers, and we're putting together working group leaders. So if you want to volunteer, just shoot us an email at contact@smartelections.us. And we just had that up a minute ago. Shoot us an email with volunteer in the subject line. We're especially looking right now for data entry, fundraising, and people who could write thank you notes. We want to be able to thank people when they're helping us. So if you're a good thank you note writer, we would love to have your help. So that's our little plug for tonight. Follow us subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook, like us on Twitter, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, whatever that is. And we're going to our breakout groups now. Thank you guys so much.
And those breakout groups are not going to be long. They're just going to be a quick gather, say hi, get quick questions answered, and then go on about your evening.
That's right? it. I'm going to the New York one, and Emily's going to lead the national one at Scrutineers. Thanks, you guys, so much. Thanks, Chris. Thanks to all our guests. And Lulu. We will see you back here. First thing to do right now, go to the Eventbrite, search for election security, and find the next forum, which is 2 weeks from tonight on August 25th, and register to be back with us in 2 weeks. Thank you guys so much for being here. Good night.